Hello everyone and welcome back to your weekly Xbox podcast, XPass, where we round up all of the weekly gaming news and Xbox news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games, and also available there in the green clouds on your podcast preference of choice. You join myself, your usual co-host, but this week host, Chris, alongside our Kurt Neutral returning once again. Hello, Rob.
Hello to you too.
And of course,
see what I did there?
Yeah, you twisted it.
Yeah.
Is the third one? Is it Halo OTS? Do we say after that?
Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out.
We'll have to figure that out for next week, because of course your regular host, Richie, our man of many pixels, is away on an emissary mission to Montreal. Don't know what he's doing, something to do with religion and cults, but we'll hear from him no doubt in the comments down below. I know he's listening on his flights or on his holiday vacation, well-earned rest time over in New York and Canada. But we're here to talk about Xbox, Rob. We've got a great show lined up for the viewers and listeners out there, talking about Indiana Jones and the Xbox exclusivity, game prices going up for both video game consoles and Game Pass, Microsoft admitting they're in third position, and the FTC fallout from all the courtroom drama. All that and much, much more. But before we do get into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here on the show, like this very show, like our weekly PlayStation podcast, Talking the PS, which goes live every Tuesday, our weekly live streams, and more importantly, our watch-alongs, where we checked out all of the showcases over the last couple of weeks for your viewing pleasure. And you joined us, the fantastic community. Love you all. And we've got a whole list of games now, Rob, coming out over the next... we didn't know what was coming in 2024 and beyond, and now I feel like there's just too much. There's too many games, all dropping, and we're going to talk about it right here on the channel. But, as with usual common practice, before we get into the rigmarole of the news, what have you been playing on Xbox or PC at this moment in time for the audience out there?
So, two main things. So, first off, I got kind of pulled into Age of Empires 4 for a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Cause I dabbled with it a little bit, but I seriously got hooked on it for this really brief snap of time for 4 days, and then blasted through it, and then that was great. Loved it. Completely free for me because obviously PC Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers is amazing. It's early access. It's really buggy in both senses of the word. But it's just heaps and heaps of fun. And for someone who's not a particularly avid first-person shooter, it's hooked me in so deeply. The music, the kind of the feel, the cheesiness is still there. So every single mission starts off from a perspective of a news broadcast.
That's cool.
And then goes, "We join the troopers, our brave troopers on planet Valaka," and then it goes into all that stuff. So that's really cool. So yeah, I'm just hammering that at the moment. They released a new patch this weekend, which has these things called mutators in them, and they change the feel of a mission based on. So you get a horde of particular enemy types, and some of them are completely broken, and you just get endless hordes. I was in a match for 70 minutes a couple of days ago,
right?
But just stuck in the initial bunker with endless swarms around you. So it's
that classic video game loop where you've got just enough ammo to keep you alive, and they're sending just enough troops to keep you at base, so no one ever makes any movement on the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly that.
And that's how time goes.
But very, very fun, and anybody on PC, I do recommend they have a check out. It's only the game's only £18 or something,
sweet.
And it's
is that
very,
early access launch price, or does it have an actual launch date?
They're aiming for, I think the last thing I read was 2024, so it's not going to be one of these forever early access games. And I think at that point they're going to discuss obviously console ports.
I feel like I have read somewhere about the console releases, but it's good to know in such an early stage that it's ticking over nicely.
Super good. What about yourself?
So I've been away with work a little bit this week. So if I've mentioned on Talking the PS, I'm playing Final Fantasy 16. Big reveal, never played it before. I go into a lot more depth tomorrow on Talking the PS. Or if you are a Helix Hero, you can check it out right now because our members get it early, so that's available to listen to. But in terms of Xbox, because I was away, I took away my Razer Kishi, and I've been dabbling on some of my other Game Pass titles. I finished Planet of Lana, so I went back in, finished that game. It took me about, I think, 5 hours maybe overall, give or take. So not too lengthy of a title, but it plays superbly on small screen because it is a 2D puzzle platformer. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
To go for? That's the.
Did it have a difficulty? I don't remember picking one.
I don't know.
It might have just been like puzzle. I don't think there is a difficulty element to it,
Okay,
just because of it. It's a puzzle, and I guess if you can figure the puzzle out, then that's it.
Okay, yeah.
But in terms of finishing it, I think beautiful game. It's definitely up there for, I think, indie game of the year in a lot of people's discussions. Not too overly complex, but it's essentially, if Limbo met War of the Worlds, is pretty much like the vibe of the whole thing. Lovely little cute character, and definitely recommend it to anyone who's looking at maybe like a palate cleanser between massive open world RPGs or big heavy story games. Tick away at it a couple of hours. My daughter did enjoy watching me playing, actually, because of like all the bright colours and stuff. Not much going on, but she sat in a little rocking chair and heard the like nice relaxing music.
I enjoyed it for the same thing. Yeah, like when I was watching Richie do the first look, I think I got the same kind of just relaxing.
Yeah, there's nothing really to it.
Yeah.
But finished that one, so I finished that, and then I thought, what do I want to do while I'm away? And I was really fortunate. I stayed in Glasgow this week, and the internet through 5G, I was getting like 130 meg in my hotel room, and I was like, holy shit,
Jesus.
This is like, I can do cloud gaming on this, like without like crappy hotel Wi-Fi, I can actually just play it. So hooked it up, ran perfectly, and I jumped back into Hi-Fi Rush. So I've gone back in and did the next 2 levels of Hi-Fi Rush. So I only did the opening hour and a half, I think, on my first look at it. And yeah, really enjoyed it, and I want to get back because I think it is going to be in my Game of the Year conversation. Maybe not the Game of the Year, but it'll be in the discussion around it. Of course, from Tokyo Gameworks. And thoroughly enjoyed it still. Plays really, really well on the small screen with the Razer Kishi. The comedy in that, the anime humour and the art style and the little video segments that drop in, stunning. If you've not played that, it's such a good game. Gorgeous, really fun to play. And again, just didn't take too much commitment because it's broken up into levels. I pretty much just commit to a level at a time, and when I finish it, I go, how much time have I got? And again, as a new parent, and I'm at work, other things to do, fits in really, really nicely. So chipped away at that one. And now I'm kind of just, where do I want to go next? I need something for my console to play. Like I said, I've got Final Fantasy, but Xbox, we'll see what's on the horizon after I've finished Hi-Fi Rush. Thoroughly enjoying it. And let us know in the comments below what you guys are playing out there. I'd ask Richie what he's playing, but can't play cloud gaming on the plane, so unfortunate for him. Moving on to the actual news topics of the week, Rob, as we always do. In Richie's absence and by proxy my absence, would you do my job and introduce us to the
excellent. Whoa! Wait a second. This is I just read my notes on the in the old doc, and this has changed. Right,
Richie's away, so we're gonna mix it up.
Okay. The excellently examined and excavated Xbox expose, aka
the news.
Oh, you chucked me in on that one, you little sly fox.
It might have been Richie. No, I don't know. I feel like I looked at it at some point, and I can't remember why. But I changed it, folks. Richie's away, and I've altered the entire DNA of the show. We're going to talk about Nintendo Switch now for 40 minutes. XPass is now something different entirely.
He's going to be listening to this on the plane back, I imagine. He's going to be like, maximum speed pilot.
Get me home. I need to change this. I can't remember what I changed now. I think I just added in examined.
Was it exuberant?
Exuberant, yeah. I think when I read it out, I hate using the word exuberant, so I changed to examined. Because I thought, in the flow of it, it's excellently, it's examined, it's been excavated, it's Xbox related, and it's an expose because it's the news. And when it was like exuberant, it was like we don't do that much hard work to get the notes together.
Yeah, it's probably not exuberant, is it?
Yeah, but we've definitely examined it because we read through the news stories, just like we're going to get into on this very show. Kickstarting things off with the breakdown from all of the FTC news because that's been this week. And aside from all that, we did get some bad news in a weird way before all that, and that is the price of Game Pass and the consoles in a lot of countries, similar to the PlayStation 5 did, is going up, Rob. So Microsoft has announced earlier this week that the Series X and Game Pass pricing is set to increase in various countries over the next couple of months, beginning with a Game Pass increase next month. So you're going from $9.99 to $10.99, so a $1 increase, and Ultimate is going to jump from $14.99 to $16.99, which is a $2 increase. Obviously, check out your equivalent local. I think in the UK it's £8.99. We'll be going up to $10.99, and Game Pass Ultimate is going to go from $12.99 up to $15.99, something like that, give or take. Crunch those numbers. Hopefully, like me, you, and Richie, you're locked into all access anyway, so you don't have to worry about these price increases. The consoles, interesting take. The Series X is going up, but not the S. So that's gonna stay locked in. Not the USA still, just like the PlayStation 5, obviously the biggest market in the world for video game console sales. Not increasing the pricing there. Obviously, they don't want to rock the boat, it seems too much. But everyone else, us Brits and the Aussies and the Canadians, we all get screwed over by this, regardless of your exchange rates for your currency. We knew this was coming, right?
Yeah.
Everything in the world right now has gone up. Your gas, electric, your tax, your water bill. The price of everything, bar gaming to a degree. We know this generation the prices of games went up. Is it any surprise? Because we've never had this before, where consoles, mid-cycle, they usually get a price cut, not a price rise. Yeah. And with all the constraints they've had around distribution, is this any surprise to you? As a businessman, is this any surprise?
No, I mean, I think it was alluded to a while ago, wasn't it?
I think Phil did say we might have to bite that bullet. Yeah,
and I think, I saw it coming. As you said, everything's getting more expensive, and especially kind of like inflation in the US versus inflation in in Europe and the UK is very different. So I can't understand and just like the logistics of getting stuff to multiple territories with multiple rules for importing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can see why the US has been a bit kind of immune to the increase compared to us. It sucks. Of course, I don't want to spend anything more than I have to on anything, because why would you? But I still think like Game Pass is still good value for money, and all it takes is one or two titles to kind of completely change that kind of formula, right? Like if Starfield hits, like that's a paid for the year in my eyes.
Yeah, you would have paid £70 for Starfield if you were into that one.
Yeah, in a parallel universe, like if Red like Fall hit as well, that would have been again another kind of.
And we've got Forza, and there's all the second party deals still to come.
Yeah,
but it was inevitable. It's something like, obviously it's a $1 trillion company, Microsoft, so it seems a bit harsh to pass it on to your consumer, but at the end of the day, the bottom line for any business is the income. They were quite clear. Caray Perez, who's head of communications at Xbox, did put out a statement saying, "We have held on the prices for console for many, many years, and we have adjusted the price to reflect the competitive conditions in each market. These Game Pass price adjustments are not related to the Activision Blizzard deal and are intended to match local conditions." So basically curbing that off quickly, that just because we're about to drop $69 billion on acquiring a company, that's not why we're bumping your price up by $2, £1.50 here and there. So it might do. They might just not want to say that publicly.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's inevitable. Everything hasn't it? Everything's gone up. Yeah. So no surprise.
Especially cloud services as well. Like servers need power, and power is expensive now.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, gas and electric goes up. Therefore, running server farms also goes up, and that cost has to go somewhere. Interestingly enough, though, as you said, the value proposition is still 100% there. In terms of the options you've got, bear that in mind that they haven't increased the Series S price. So what was arguably the best deal collectively with All Access or Game Pass for 2 years and a console, that hasn't changed. So the cheapest entry-level point is still the cheapest entry-level point. And now it's even cheaper because the other stuff's gone up a little bit. So that's locked in. And my guess is because of things like All Access and the rules around like finance agreements and signing up for a 2-year deal and how that's impacted by inflation, you are traditionally usually locked in and like protected against those rises because you've agreed to a set fee. So go check it out. Go do what we need to. But I guess for us, Rob, we're already in the ecosystem. We've saved money technically by getting it. It's weird, but like I've got my PS5 sat here and it's now £30 more if I went and bought one today. So it's gone up in value since I bought it, which is very rare for technology. It usually goes the other way.
Assets.
Yeah, which is crazy. All those scalpers who are still sat on them who can't sell them.
I think like one thing to bear in mind as well, like the second-hand market for the Series S is like flooded at the moment. So I don't think a price increase on the Series S would just push more people at second-hand market anyway. So like I can see why they haven't done that. But you know,
we also don't have a price on the terabyte Series S that they announced at the showcase. So that I think that might alleviate the reason they've not done anything with the initial Series S. So if that white Series S is out there at the same price as it always has been, I think it gives them a little bit more wiggle room to maybe bump the price of the terabyte Series S out when it launches later this year, because then that's going to fill that price jump gap without the need to scare off customers who still want the standard one. So I guess they've got something in the pipeline that can compensate for that a little bit. But either way, not good news for people looking to pinch a penny every now and again. Moving on, though, this is a very FTC-focused show, as I said. So weirdly enough, while Microsoft and Phil Spencer and the team are in court discussing spending millions and millions of dollars, they're putting the prices up separately. You would have thought that maybe you've kept this for another week. But no, if you're going to go in, commit.
Like in their perfect planning scenario, I do feel like this deal was already through, and they've tried to delay these price increases as much as they can do, but they're like, we can't sustain it anymore. Like,
get everyone in on Call of Duty and all those other IP, and then go, to support these IP, we need to bump the price up. But as you said, with rising costs and stuff, you can only hold out for so long. And even though they do stay in there, it's nothing to do with that. Every business, if you're going to drop nearly 70 billion, billion? It is billion, isn't it? 69 billion.
Yeah, for beef.
That's a big number. Obviously it impacts the business to some degree. That check needs to be cashed and signed at some point. But pivoting away then let's go into the FTC conversation. So for those who've been following it all week, we've got essentially loads of snippets of info that are coming out from the court cases. Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, Phil Spencer, they're all basically, I was going to say on trial. They're not on trial. They're in court, sharply dressed, suits and ties, talking to FTC lawyers and stuff in the presence of a judge. And let's face it, an FTC team who seemingly don't know that much about the games industry still. I've seen images on Twitter where they're dragging in like PlayStation 5 boxes and Nintendo Switch boxes to put on the standards. Exhibit A, is this an Xbox? Yes. Look at this Nintendo Switch. They're not the same thing. And Phil Spencer's had to come out and like basically explain how a Nintendo Switch is competing in the same market as Xbox, whereas the FTC are trying to argue that the Switch is a separate entity that doesn't work in the same field. And
it's very, very bizarre. Like I'd go so far to say that like some of the FTC questions, the questions which anybody in business should know, not just gaming. Like there's very simple things in there which seems to go over the head. So as you said, like the comparison between like the Switch and the Xbox not being in the same, like that's like saying like in marketing you have like direct competitors, which is like, you know, Xbox, Microsoft, very simple competitors there. But you also have like wallet share competitors where it's like, I don't know, someone can buy, you know, a new wardrobe or a new piece of clothing, or they could also like go out to eat. Like those two things are competing for disposable income share. Like there's stuff like that which anybody who's been working in business for all 10 minutes should grasp the concept of.
There's always like a Venn diagram, and I don't understand how they can look at that and go, I can play this game on Nintendo Switch, I can play it on Xbox. So there's already that connection immediately just by the content alone.
Yeah.
And then, but just because one's portable, that doesn't make any difference. It's the same thing. That's like going, I go to the cinema to watch a movie, but because I can watch it on my phone at the same time, they're two different things. Like, no, they're not. It's the same content being consumed, albeit the Nintendo Switch is incredibly underpowered compared to it.
But also, like, playing a game and going to, like, and watching a movie, those two compete within the same entertainment space, which again, like they don't seem to grasp that concept of it doesn't have to be like for like to compete, which
it's anything that takes up time, and entertainment specifically is that. So there's loads of daft little snippets that have came out, and we'll get into a few of them. The interesting one that came out initially is Microsoft essentially admitting they lost the quote-unquote console wars. One of the FTC lawyers, I guess, did ask Phil Spencer, like, where you find your positioning in the console market come 2021, even highlighting that Xbox only had a 16% share of the console market in 2021, which we kind of knew, I think, off the back of the PlayStation 4's success and the meteoric rise of the Nintendo Switch, which I think caught a lot of them by surprise. And I quote from Phil, Xbox has lost the console wars, and its rivals are positioned to continue to dominate, including by leveraging exclusive content. Xbox has consistently ranked third in consoles behind PlayStation and Nintendo. And this goes back to they didn't bring up the console war. It was the FTC lawyer, and Phil essentially said that the console wars are a social construct made by gamers. It's not something that they talk about internally. It's not something it's not a real damn war. We all know that, but it's the term that sticks all the time. And essentially admitting that, this is when they try to say Nintendo aren't part of the conversation and saying, well, actually, no, you're not in third, you're in second, because there's only PlayStation, Xbox in that field. And then them trying to have to counter-argue and say, well, we've got the PC world, we've got the Switch, which is very much a key player, and that's why we see ourselves as third. And it's a weird court case, this, because essentially the overall crux of it is Microsoft trying to position themselves in a weak state so they can push over saying, we need this Activision deal to go through to survive, to keep our content up there, to compete with the likes of Nintendo's exclusivity and PlayStation's exclusivity. And obviously, the big takeaway is it's kind of their own fault. They haven't worked on their own internal studios to get to that level of quality that Nintendo and PlayStation have. But what happens in a consumer world, a capitalist society, is if you have money to spend, you spend that money to improve your services. And that's what Microsoft are doing. And anyone who wants to put a block on that, you do have to I'm on both sides of the fence. I sway back and forth with it. Like sometimes I don't care because I'm not a Call of Duty player. I'm probably more of a PlayStation fan. But at the same time, it's business. Like, who are we to stop business from progressing? If you've got the money to spend, then that's up to you. But
and I think the Xbox team have done a really good job of kind of giving some context to where they stand in the market, because I was surprised at the 16% figure. I
it's
didn't
low,
think
isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what I thought it was, but I didn't think it was that.
Because you'd like to think maybe they'd all want to be on about a third apiece, but evidently PlayStation is outselling them 2-1. We saw a few weeks ago the financial results showed that the Series S is underperforming, even though I feel like it's doing amazingly well. I'm just one guy looking at it from the outside in, whereas actually statistically they're not. And the Nintendo Switch just keeps selling, and Legend of Zelda is going to do nothing but increase sales of Switches tenfold. So they're not stopping anytime soon. And I guess when you think about breaking down just the 100% margins, 16-20 is probably the best they could ask for, because they're clearly not getting anywhere near the 33% they probably want.
Yeah, exactly. And like one of the key things I think which I pulled out from the conversation, and it was one where Phil Spencer got like particularly frustrated. I feel like out of all.
I think everyone feels for him.
Yeah, but there was they were talking about kind of IPs and assets and things like that, and obviously Sony have invested a countless money into like investing in their IPs and like their first party studios, which they've done by hiring developers and hiring teams to build these things up. And one of the things that the FTC seem to have like an opinion of is that like Microsoft are just trying to like spend money to do the same thing, and like it's almost like seen like a shortcut. But like Phil Spencer does a really good point of saying like no, like we're not kind of just throwing money at it. We're like transforming this money we have into an asset, which we think is worth more than that. And it's nothing that Sony or Nintendo haven't done in the long term. Like Microsoft are just doing it in a much more condensed period of time, like by buying something that already exists. And like that's what they have to do. They're behind in. Let's be fair. Outside of cloud gaming, every single metric in the console wars, so to speak. So I don't think it's an option for them to invest in their game studios over the next 4 or 5 years. Like something needs to happen quicker than that. And the seeing this deal is the thing that does that. Like they're doing the right thing, and like someone's trying to jump in and stop them.
The scrutinies definitely came from just the sheer size and scope of it, as you alluded to there, and the time frame in which they're trying to do it. Because it's like nothing to take away, but Sony they're no stranger to acquiring people. They've got Bungie, even though they run them independently. They acquired Insomniac, who made exclusive content for Xbox. They took that away, brought them in-house, and yes, they'd made games with them in the work, and maybe they've nurtured their relationships a little bit differently, but they've had the benefit of internally they've grew their own studios themselves. So Naughty Dog was acquired back in Jak and Daxter times by Sony. So Naughty Dog went first party at one point, but all the like Sony Santa Monica who do God of War and stuff, they have internally done it, and Microsoft could have done that, but because of mismanagement or bad artistic vision or just the games didn't land in the past, like you said, because they're in third place, like how far behind do they slip before the business starts to become unobtainable? They're making this investment, as you said, in assets. And you're right, I think one of the lawyers said about the way they're buying Activision, and Phil Spencer's retort was like, we're not looking to just buy them to own them, we're looking at it as an investment we're acquiring all of their assets and their cost involved in the running of that business, absorbing it into ours to improve our business, which is what all businesses do every single day. You'd like to think they invest for the safety and the protection of their future industry.
So you can't, like, it feels like it's almost like a punishment of you're punishing the past actions of Microsoft by saying, well, you fucked up, so now you can't do anything to get ahead. Which
is crazy, right? It's, again, that's how capitalism works, is you invest to make money and you get rewards off the back of it, and then you keep investing to keep growing and make your business bigger. If companies didn't do that, no company would last beyond like their initial incubation period, because they just wouldn't be able to survive. So it's an interesting one, and we'll just go through. I think that's what this whole show is pretty much going to be about, is drilling down into those little nuggets of information. There was loads of daft questions, I think, that I read through. There's a great article on The Verge, which basically, it's Tom Warren at The Verge has been basically following the court case, almost like it's a daily drama. Like, there was a murder in this small town in Alabama, and we're going to follow the court case live today. Every half an hour, we're going to give you updates. There's definitely some dodgy artistic sketch of Phil Spencer out there, you know, when it's like, it'll look nothing like him.
It's like, Phil Spencer, does this glove fit on your hand? And he's like...
Can you confirm this is in fact an Xbox controller? Lawyer holds up Xbox controller to the crowd. Yes, I can confirm. What was the really stupid one? They interviewed Sarah Bond, and one of the questions to her was, do you need a Steam code? The lawyer was basically saying, you need a Steam code to play Xbox games on PC, right? And she's like, no. And the lawyer was like, I don't know what to do from there. It's like, your questions aren't even accurate enough. And I think this is the problem with all of the video game industry, is that all of the kind of governments, we saw it in the UK when the CMA blocked this deal, is that their reasoning was cloud gaming. And I know that's an element of it, but I think all of us, and we on this show, me and Richie a few weeks back, were thinking, that makes no sense. Like, yes, it's an element of it, but at the same time, why should that stop Microsoft investing? Because the CMA think that cloud gaming's at risk in the future, whereas seemingly Microsoft are the only ones investing in it. So back to your point, just a few minutes ago, they're getting penalised for investing in an emerging market because they're the best ones at it. So but if they don't do it, I mean, Google fucked that one up royally. So who else is going to do it? And like, you can't. It's just such an odd thing. But moving on to the next kind of like story, I guess that's locked in here, is we did find out that Bethesda's upcoming project Indiana Jones which we didn't know actually if it was going to be an exclusive or not. We finally got an answer. So during a witness testimony of part of the FTC's case, we learned from, that wasn't Todd Howard, I don't think. Why is the name of the guy not in the article? It says during a witness testimony, but doesn't tell us who it was. Basically, Pete Hines, there it is, there we go, Pete Hines. Indiana Jones has confirmed that the game will be exclusive on Xbox platforms and PC, and day one release on Game Pass. So Indiana Jones is one of those titles that I expected to see at the showcase last week, because the new movie comes out this week. So in terms of like cross-media marketing, I thought that was like a perfect win. Yes, and all we've seen so far is just a pan across a table with a whip and a camera and a book. Didn't really give us more. We've had to wait an entire year and we got nothing. So either way, the court was told that initially it was a multi-console contract with Disney, but it was amended after Microsoft had purchased ZeniMax. So then this does go back to the point which we talked a little bit about tomorrow on Talking the PS, that these game deals that were supposedly set in place can change after acquisitions. And I think that is the fear that the FTC keeps saying, is that you're going to take titles that would have previously been multi-platform, so for more people, and by the statistics, over 80% of the market, are no longer going to be accessible, which isn't right for consumers. So I see the side of the story. But yeah, I would have probably played Indiana Jones on my PlayStation 5, if I'm honest. Am I that bothered that I have to play it on Xbox? Not really. But it does just to show that things that were set in motion can still be changed. So this would have been on potentially PS5 and Switch, possibly not, probably not, let's face it. But
like performance-wise,
it no longer is. So Indiana Jones is an Xbox exclusive. Thoughts?
Yeah, like strangely enough, it feels like since this is kind of going through, like the shields are going up at both Microsoft and Sony versus each other, and ironically is is causing more kind of exclusivities to occur than would have in the past, in my opinion.
You know what they need to do, though? Let us know if this game is third person. That's still something I want them... Like, can't the lawyer ask a relevant question? Forget asking about all the financial benefits. Look them dead in the eye and go, is Indiana Jones third person, and will it look like Harrison Ford? Because that's the selling point for me. If it's some random deep fake Harrison Ford who doesn't sound like him, this game could be totally thrown in the bin before it's even been started. So...
Yeah, I'd love for some like rogue junior lawyer, like who's just like there for experience, just to jump on and be like, right, you're under oath now, and like,
you can't lie.
With
Harrison Ford being 82 years old, can you confirm? I'm looking forward to seeing the movie. Yeah, exactly. You cannot lie. That's how it works. It's magic, court magic. So Indiana Jones, Xbox exclusive, coming to Game Pass day one. So again, back to the value proposition, Rob, as a gamer who has Xbox Game Pass. Well, hey, I get to play this game day one, whether it is or is not. Harrison Ford, I'll probably check it out because it's free, essentially, for me.
Yeah.
Speaking of like acquisitions and mergers, then we know Starfield is the biggest huge thing coming up for Bethesda, and from this court case, we also learned, similar to the Indiana Jones news, that Starfield was actually going to skip Xbox entirely at one point. Reading from the Verge article via proxy of the court case again, when we acquired ZeniMax, one of the impetus for us was that Sony had a deal done for Deathloop and Ghostwire to pay Bethesda not to ship those games on Xbox. So the discussions about when Starfield came up was we heard it was potentially going to end up skipping Xbox entirely. We cannot be in a position as third place console on the market where we fall further behind our content ownership, so we had to secure the remaining viable business. And we know Deathloop, some Game of the Year winning accolades made by Bethesda, PlayStation exclusive for a year. Ghostwire Tokyo came out from Tango Gameworks last year. Great game, well received, exclusive for PlayStation for an entire year. Starfield, which the way they're talking about it is going to be the next big thing ever to come out in video game history, could have also been not only a time exclusive, but by the sounds of it, Sony were gearing up for this to be fully exclusive. And I don't blame Microsoft for looking at this and going, right, how much have we got in the bank? 7.5 billion? We can get all these studios, all this IP for content, and more importantly, we safeguard our business from losing out on these top titles. And then the rest is history, I guess. They bought ZeniMax, they acquired Bethesda and all the studios under that umbrella, and now we live in a world where Starfield is probably going to be Microsoft's saving grace this year.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So if they're in last position, if they didn't have Starfield, what the hell would we be playing later on this year? Forza?
Yeah, it almost feels like Sony's being like the bigger kid, and it's being like just like hitting, Microsoft was like with this like little stick for a while, and then Microsoft's like, okay, like, well, Xbox is being like, oh, he's my big brother, and he's got a massive stick, and now Sony's
a bank
like,
account.
No, this isn't fair. Like, stop doing this.
It's it makes sense. Like, again, how do you stop an aggressive competitor? Like, Sony just clearly have this magic way of making deals, because we've seen it with Square Enix time and time again. We've seen it with second-party content. I don't know whether it's the lawyers or just a legacy or preference or maybe Japanese studios. Sometimes it's a cultural thing. But for some reason, they do get their foot through the door on great deals. And Deathloop was one of them. Ghostwire was another one. Forspoken, maybe not so much. But then we've got Final Fantasy we talk about tomorrow. It's big hitter after big hitter they get.
But that's the benefit of being in first place. Like,
you've got more
relationships are much easier to broker.
Well, when you've got a bigger fan base, naturally, if you're a developer or a publisher, you go, right, do we put the game on a platform that's got X amount of million or one that's got 2/3 less? Yeah. You're going to go for the bigger fish. That's naturally how it is.
And it means Microsoft have to proportionately spend more for every title than Sony do, because they have to invest a competitive amount and then ultimately get less back out of it.
Yeah, so they're paying over the odds because they're in last place, but they need to pay over the odds to get out of last place. So they're in a very catch-22 scenario. And then you've got people like the FTC coming in and saying, oh, you're not allowed to do that. How do we survive? How do we ever get to a competitive place if we're hamstrung by all these regulations that stop us investing in our business?
I feel like Phil Spencer needs to go to the FTC and be like, okay, give me the business plan which you think we should follow.
And then
to your rules.
And show all the graphs that go down, plummet into red for not spending, not investing, not getting games. Because if they didn't have Starfield, if they didn't have Indiana Jones, like, obviously they showed a great slate of games off at that last week's showcase, but would it be enough to compete with God of War, Spider-Man 2, Gran Turismo? Like, is it up there with that? And
also Tsushima. Like,
yeah, it's so Horizon. The list goes on. So either way, interesting tidbit to come out of that. I think we kind of probably already knew that, but I didn't realise it was as serious as they might not have ever got Starfield. And again, if you were Bethesda, Deathloop got you a bag ton of money. Ghostwire Tokyo got you a bag ton of money. Starfield, why not? And then it's such an interesting world.
Xbox be this year without Starfield?
Well, it hasn't came out yet, but
in the alternate universe where it was never going to come anyway.
Yeah, Redfall bombed, then Starfield bombed.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, maybe it was good that it would have been better if Redfall was kind of barred from the
maybe. That's a whole different story, though. So, either way, obviously, we know how that one ended. Is ZeniMax was acquired for $7.5 billion, which is still just a drop in the ocean compared to the 68 point something that they're looking to get Activision. Just shows you how far above Call of Duty is considered compared to anything else. Like Fallout, Skyrim, like they're all huge IP. Starfield, hopefully one of them. But just Call of Duty is just a different beast unto itself, isn't it? It's crazy how much money. That's like the best-selling video game for the last 15 plus years, I think, every year. But moving on through our lawyer's case, we also found out that apparently at one point Microsoft was interested in buying Zynga, which you'll know from the it's a busy mobile division. They make things like Farmville, essentially, and a bunch of Crash Bandicoot on the Run, those type of things. No, they don't do that. And that one's King. Zynga do Farmville and a bunch of other stuff. Just Google them. I'm not even going to do the research myself, sorry. But in terms of what they were talking about is they wanted to acquire it, but then it ended up being sold to Take-Two Interactive for $12.7 billion. So that was one that always shocked me, these mobile companies. And one of the reasons Microsoft have said that they're looking at this deal is it might seem like it's just Call of Duty, but a big chunk of it, and I think Richie's the one who always fights this corner, is that it's actually king. It's having the mobile division to put games on mobile, which has a crazy amount of revenue and turnover for just mobile games. Because as gamers, I think it's a division that we maybe shun off a little bit. Is that they're not proper games; they're just touchscreen kiddie games filled with microtransactions.
Casuals.
But they make so much money, and Microsoft, as a business that's in gaming, they don't have that. We've seen Sony struggle with it, even Nintendo put out. Remember Mario Run? It had a bit of buzz, but it didn't do all that well. Aside from Pokemon Go, I can't think of a big game that's really cracked it for these gaming divisions. And Microsoft obviously want in on that. So back to what we're saying about investment, rather than start off and try and make 4 or 5 mobile games that do average, I think probably Fallout Shelter was their best one.
Yeah.
I'd say that was quite successful. Other than that, they also want King as part of this deal. So we talk about Call of Duty at length, but actually King and acquiring them is a big, big chunk of this deal because mobile gaming is a massive reason Microsoft want to pursue it. So interesting, though, that they did just look at one. You can see almost in hindsight, in Pete hindsight, where they're looking at, over the last few years, to invest and spend money. And there's there's our mobile division. There's the games by bringing in ZeniMax. And then now it's just got wider into, we could get all of the Call of Duty teams and another mobile division and IP on top of it, like Crash Bandicoot and stuff. Why wouldn't we? It makes sense. So, Zynga, interesting one, but another tidbit to come out of the Activision deal. Moving on to what else we've got out of it. We've got a little bit more. Where should we jump around to? Cloud gaming, Rob. That's a big point. I think we've said a couple of times in this show that it's not... Maybe not as big as we'd hoped, but because of the CMA, they thought it was a big element of it. Sarah Bond, who was, again, up in court, speaking under oath, her response to the Game Pass Xbox Cloud Gaming feature is, it's not as popular as we maybe once thought. And to read from a quote, what we found is that it's really being used by our players as a feature for the consoles, emphasis on feature, because what people do is when you start playing a game, instead of waiting for it to download, you can start playing it straight away while it's downloading in the background, and it's actually the majority of the usage of xCloud Gaming today. It's just a console feature. It's not a storefront unto itself. So I think this is a bit of a maybe downplaying it a little bit. Yeah. But they're basically, I think, because of what happened with the CMA ruling and their focus on concerns around cloud gaming, Now they've gone to the FTC. They're trying to just get away from cloud gaming being any part of the conversation by saying it's basically let's talk about them for demos only. It's just for demos. It's not really a marketplace. We ain't selling games to cloud gamers. Look how much Stadia failed. And then, because they did actually have Dov Zimring from Stadia team. He was lined up to speak at this hearing, which, considering Stadia shut down in January, it's a bit odd that they've got a representative for Stadia present here, other than maybe to ask him what went wrong.
Maybe he was just booked on early. So
yeah, we booked his appointment back in January before it was announced. Yeah. So either way, cloud gaming, it's interesting to think internally they've addressed it. And I think with the shuttering of Stadia and the performance of Amazon Luna currently, do we think this puts a pin in like everyone's cloud gaming aspirations for quite a while? Are we due to just wait another decade before it's going to rear its head once again?
I think there's it depends how you look at it. So I get the argument where they're saying it's not like a market unto itself. Me personally, I view it as an evolution of a current market in the same way that kind of like DVD evolved into Blu-ray, which evolved into kind of streaming as the, I guess, predominant way to consume film media, right? So I get there's always going to be kind of purists who still kind of like value the marginal increases in Blu-ray. Like, I don't know if you still collect Blu-rays, but like
less than I used to, but
yeah. But there's still like an enthusiasm market, I guess, for that. But in the same way, I kind of see that cloud gaming is the evolution of gaming as opposed to this distinct thing happening. I think like obviously we're in the early adopter stage, so I get her argument in some regards. But I think it is a definite, to call it a feature is, I think, not necessarily correct. But I kind of see where she's coming from. But it's a definite downplay because they got spanked by the CSA.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let's not talk about this. Just in case. But yeah, and we know it's probably running at a loss for the moment because of the servers required and stuff, and they're not getting purchases because I think Microsoft said it was going to be done by the end of last year, and we're still not to see it yet. But any games you purchase outright are supposed to be in the future going to be playable through the cloud. So similar to what we had on Stadia, where you buy a game and you can play it anywhere. I think because of Game Pass, it's maybe stammered that a little bit, where because most people who try out xCloud or Xbox Cloud Gaming are just doing it for demo purposes, I think Microsoft have maybe like reeled back their time and investment a little bit. And I think with competition like Stadia shuttering, the necessary requirements to compete isn't there anymore. So they're like, well, why would we keep investing as much as we have been when we can just do a slow trickle effect, see how the market trends go, and maybe if we need to ramp up, like, let's face it, they're still number one. They've got the biggest library ever.
Yeah.
They nail it when it comes to day one. Like, we've done so many streams on this channel where I haven't installed a thing because it's there on Game Pass PC day one to stream via the cloud. That's my preference to do because then I don't have to clunk up my whole hard drive with downloading game after game after game. So it's great for me, but I can see where they're playing it into a utility, and I completely agree. It's just to skirt around those particular features.
Yeah, but it's that thing, isn't it, where they say competition breeds innovation, but if Sony aren't particularly pushing ahead, Luna's just sat there, Stadia's dead. Like I can see internally they've scaled back their ambitions a bit in the short term.
I mean, they've essentially won out. They've literally outlasted some of their competition, and at the moment, like GeForce Now, for all the great things it does, it's not quite the same as what Xbox is offering. We know PlayStation have said they're going to aggressively get in the cloud again. That might take another year or two before we even see the fruition of that. So they're in no rush, and they don't need to be because they're concerned with court cases and lawyers at the moment. So that's fine. A couple of little tidbits we got out of the showcase as well is Xbox expects next-gen consoles to be landing in 2028. So if you're worried about your price going up for your Series X and Game Pass, fear not, because there'll be a brand new console out by the end of 2028, no doubt, for you to spend even more money on, because I'm sure the price point will go up. And I guess this ties in with what we were saying about cloud, is that it's there to compensate for that. So if you cannot afford these consoles with the price rises, as long as you've got Game Pass, you can play most of them via PC or cloud gaming anyway. So I said at the top of the show, I played Planet of Lana and Hi-Fi Rush this week using just my phone on the move with Game Pass. Worked perfectly fine for my case basis at that moment in time. it is a great utility. It's a great feature, and I'm so glad it still exists today. But yeah, 2028, Rob, what do we think? You, me, and Richie have just become the proud owners of a Series S. We're in this ecosystem. If it rears its head eventually in just a few short, it feels like a long time away, but blinking it'll be here. When the other day, last week, me and Richie were talking about the the Xbox One. Being shut down, they're no longer supporting it, and it reaches its 10th anniversary this year. If you told me the Xbox One was 10 years old this year,
crazy,
that's baffling, because I remember when it launched. I remember when I got my PS4 and it seemed so new, but telling me that my PlayStation 4 is a 10-year-old this November is like, what? That's crazy. Yeah. But that's how time works, and that's what's so weird about these deals, is that, let's do a 10-year deal for Call of Duty. By the time that deal expires, this new console will only be 3 years old. So that doesn't seem that crazy, that by the time Call of Duty could go exclusive on Xbox, this new console that launched in 2028 will only be like 2-3 years. Like where we're at now with the Series X, that's how far into the cycle will be before Call of Duty could just go, whoa, Xbox exclusive. Yeah. Along with Crash Bandicoot, along with Diablo, along with Warcraft. Warcraft? Yeah, it's Warcraft. I said that right.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, 10 years doesn't seem like much, but when it takes 10 years to put out a game, Gotham Knights and or Suicide Squad, it's no surprise that actually a 10-year deal doesn't seem like that long of a stretch.
No, it's a weird kind of duality, I think. Like, 10 years in tech is a lifetime. And if you look where, like, the advancements that have been made, especially with like AI and like cloud infrastructure in the past 3 years, it's moving at like breakneck speeds. But then you have like these weird stalwarts which don't particularly move, like Skull and Bones, and stuff like that. So it's just a very strange, relatively unique kind of market in that respect, where you have like the legacy stuff happening, but then like concurrent to that, you have a lot of very, very fast moving things, like the AI generative stuff that got demoed a few months back, like ridiculously like kind of advanced and stuff like that. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen? I'm still dubious there will be consoles for this next generation.
Yeah, well, Richie said for quite some time he thinks maybe not this 2028 one will probably be the last one for Xbox. I think when cloud gaming really picked up 3 years ago, that's the way it seemed to be gearing towards. And kind of like with VR, everyone's like, oh, is VR going to be a thing? And it still continues to be a thing somehow, even though a lot of us kind of dismiss it or think it's too expensive or whatever. And then Apple go and drop a $3,500 headset, and you think, well, if they're seeing it as the future, and all these other companies, like these companies, essentially, they do dictate the market, what we buy, what they create, what they engineer is what we buy. If you told me 10 years ago I would have had 5 smart hubs in my home with screens and speakers to play music, and I would have a CCTV security camera that links to my phone, and I'd have all these other devices like 2 tablets in the house and a phone, and I would have probably thought, no, that's crazy. Like, 1, I don't have the money to spend on that, and 2, I don't even see how that would work. And yet here we are in 2023, and they're all hooked up to my Wi-Fi, Nest hubs and everything out the wazoo. So in another 10 years' time, we don't know. We don't know what is in the future. So, yeah, for people, I think, to turn their nose up at either cloud gaming or these acquisitions and stuff, is blink and it'll be here. It'll be here, and I'll have a 10-year-old daughter somehow, and I'll be like, where the fuck did that time go?
Yeah. Like to demonstrate like that point where you're saying like you've got all like your smart hubs and like your was it Amazon View or whatever they're called?
I've got the Google Nest hubs. Is mine.
Like, I was watching a movie from like 2013, which is like This Is the End, which has like James Franco and like Seth Rogen, and like one of the jokes in that is like James Franco's like getting a bit kind of wound up that they've like spent a load of money on like takeout, and like Seth Rogen goes, you have iPads in your fucking walls, right? Like, and it's like, that's not really particularly special now, is it?
No, everyone's got them. They're all
and that was 10 years ago.
But yeah, there's so many things. A great one that I always look back at is, you'll relate to this one quite a lot, is James Bond Tomorrow Never Dies. With Elliot Carver and controlling the media and the news. That movie, which happened so long before where we're at today, and he wants he wants basically exclusive broadcasting rights in China for the next 10 years. If you as a producer, a news company, could get that exclusive deal, that would be worth billions in today's world. So it's like, Elliot Carver ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't see that big saw coming.
No, but I do think Amazon probably does have like a stealth ship.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they all have these like crazy pieces of tech that we just have no clue what they are. But in 10 years, we'll probably all own one to some degree. We digress, though. That's pretty much going to put a wrap on the FTC conversation for this week. No doubt, as the week goes on, we'll get loads of stories will trickle out of it. And hopefully, Rob, by the time recording next week's show, we'll have an end. Because the FTC court cases are going to run for 5 days. I think it goes till this coming Friday. Mm-hmm. By then, if FTC have adjudged it to be a no-go, I think Microsoft are done. They're out. I think they've said this is the last nail in the coffin. The CMA have put a block on it. If the FTC, remember, this is Xbox's biggest marketplace in the US. If they can't get the US on the side, I think it's done.
Yeah, I think if the US gets on side, like the CMA can will roll over in some degree and go back. But there's no chance in hell that's going to happen if the US goes the same way. And what's your bet?
I think it'll go through. I think it's just too much money not to go through. And as much as lawyers and stuff want to do their absolute best to fight their argument, I don't think this much money gets thrown around unless it's a guaranteed win.
Yeah,
I think there's so much research. Just for the sake, or is that
just for the sake of it, and we'll make it a pint bet.
I mean, there is a funny, interesting tidbit that Microsoft might hold the FTC accountable for the expenditure because of this court case, which is currently tallying up to about $3 billion. So basically, if this doesn't go through, Microsoft are going to counter-sue the FTC and say, we've put so much time and money into this already to get this through. Mm-hmm. You just knocking this on the head, you're going to have to pay something for it. So I think the FTC also have like a bias to make sure it goes through so they don't have to fork out $3 million of taxpayers' money.
Yeah. There's some lawyers that have got very rich off this, haven't they?
Oh, well, they always do. That's what they always say. The only people who get rich are the dirty, filthy lawyers. So that's how it is. But let's get on to some game news as we wind out today's show. Halo. We haven't spoken about Halo for quite some time. And funnily enough, it was exempt from the showcase. It was one of the weird Microsoft showcases. The first one me and Richie have covered. And a lot of the chatter afterwards was, as much as the games look great and the showcase was fantastic, no Halo and no Gears of War for the first time in ever for Microsoft and Xbox, it feels like. So it left, I think, a lot of old schools fans feeling a bit void of it's like going to a party and then the family members who were always there or your friends who were always there, just they're missing. There'd be that elephant in the room of, I still had a good time, I still got drunk, but I was missing those two individuals who I always hang out with and see. Yeah. It'd be like you and me going to a party and you and Richie not being there, or me and Richie not being there, and you're there just on your own thinking, something's missing. But back to Halo. Halo Infinite apparently scrapped seasonal cutscenes following 343's reshuffle, prioritising gameplay above all else. So, reading from Brian Jarrett over on Twitter, who is the community director for 343, apparently they had to make a trade-off to improve on gameplay rather than focus on story content. And I read from the quote tweet, "As we've refined our top priorities and shifted resources internally this year, we had to make the decision to forego seasonal narrative cutscenes to make room for the team to continue focusing on the highly requested features, content, and improvements for Halo Infinite. These trade-offs are never easy to make, and we truly appreciate your support as the team works to make Halo Infinite the best ever possible experience. While the job is far from over, Season 4 marks another big step forward, and we remain committed to the journey with the Halo community." So we know they had layoffs and cutbacks and stuff earlier on this year. Mm-hmm. It does just seem like Season 4 of Halo is... It's weird that it's being lessened by not doing the story cutscenes, because I think a lot of people do play Halo for those story touchpoints, but it's actually launched last week, Season 4, so it's out now. And I guess, as someone who's not got round to Infinite yet, I've only played Halo 1 with Richie, so it's not really on my radar, but I know long school fans are thinking, we saw nothing at the showcase, and now you're telling us Season 4 should have had more story content, but because of cutbacks and layoffs, we're just getting the content rather than the story elements, which a lot of people look for. It's kind of like if Overwatch did no story content, like they did. It pisses a lot of people off.
Yeah. It's a weird decision for me, because... Obviously, when Halo first came out, the mechanics and the combat was really, really good, and that's kind of what you built the back of the franchise on. Yeah. But I feel like it's moved. The market's moved on. People value story and narrative a bit more than gameplay and a lot like that, especially on a shooter as well.
Yeah, I think because it starts to get a bit generic. Shooters, at the end of the day, if you're just shooting things, using shields, throwing bombs, grenades, whatever. it does just feel the same. And the story elements are what kind of fills in those gaps of imagination and lets people go, oh, this shooting, it means something because of the characters in the world. These grenades I'm throwing, it means something because of the backstory and the ramifications of it. If you don't have those elements, it is just become of, I'm just shooting for the sake of shooting.
Yeah. It's like Starship Troopers. That game is, it's good gameplay, but if it didn't have like the IP and like it wasn't very faithful to the IP and things like that, then it would do fairly unremarkable. Like, not to diminish the game, but it would be
just another shooter, which is what always bugs me when we like. I think why I don't like not that I don't like shooters, but I enjoyed Wolfenstein thoroughly because it had that story element to it. That's what made it so cool and unique. And Infinite, my plan is to slowly get through them, get to it as quick as I can, but. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's funny things going on at 343 still. But rounding out the show, final story for me this week, Rob. I brought this specifically into the doc for you. Lies of P, the Bloodborne-inspired Dark Souls Pinocchio steampunk adventure that we're going to get on Game Pass later on this year. September 19th, I believe it comes out. And Wolong Fallen Dynasty, which is a game you've got further than Richie in, definitely, because Richie couldn't even get past that first boss fight somehow to this day. They're having a crossover combination, so out of nowhere, we're getting probably the oddest collaboration of the year. Reading from the Wolong Fallen Dynasty Twitter account, we are pleased to announce that we are collaborating with Lies of P, a dark fairy tale action game from South Korea. Stay tuned for more details. So we don't actually know anything more, but Rob, how does the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and the Fallen Dynasty cross over with Pinocchio?
I have absolutely. This could be one of those things. It's like when Elton John and like Eminem did a collab, and it turned out to be amazing, or it could just be bizarre. I don't know which is going to be.
Are we expecting Pinocchio to be fighting like Guan Yu and stuff in this, or is Lu Bu going to show up in Lies of P as a boss?
Like, I'm guessing it's going to be like. Surely it's going to be like primarily cosmetic, right?
You'd imagine so, yeah. I mean, the studios, they're not the same. It's not like Koei Tecmo or Team Ninja are working on both. It's two independently ran companies. Apparently, someone made a phone call or sent an email out and went, let's do it. Let's just do this. Let's get you fighting Pinocchio as a boss fight at the end of Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Forget Lu Bu, Pinocchio.
There was some like developer conference where like a couple of people got talking and then it just spiraled into to this, which... I don't even know what to think about it, but yeah, I'll check it out. Interesting enough, but we don't know anything about it yet, other than there is a collaboration agreed. So you won't have to wait long. Wolong Fallen Dynasty is going to get some DLC slated for later this month, so actually next week, 29th of June. And then there's some later packs announced for later on, which could time it quite nicely with the Lies of P launch date in September. So maybe the last DLC pack will be that, and maybe we'll see some characters show up in Lies of P, which is again probably one of the stronger touted games for Xbox later this year. Again, not first party, but back to what we were saying about the Bethesda deal Sony made. This could be a good win for Microsoft if they put the eggs in the right basket. But we will have to find out and wait to see what that holds, just like all of the news and fallout from the FTC case that happened this week. It's ongoing. Check it out. Follow all the Twitter pages to be kept in the loop with all of that news. But we'll break it down on next week's episode of XPass. Richie is not here next week either. I think he's still away travelling the world. But we'll be here to break it all down for you lovely fine folks watching along at home. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here, like this very show, like Talking the PS, our weekly PlayStation podcast that goes live every Tuesday, along with our live streams, our first looks and watch-alongs. We will have a live stream probably at some point this week, Rob. We haven't ironed out a date or a game yet. We'll figure that out as the week goes on. Follow us on Twitter so you're kept in the loop with what is due to go live. But we'll get back to some video gaming in and amongst this busy summer of video games. My name's been Chris. And I've been Rob.
We've been talking about Xbox for Helix Plays Games. I was going to say talking the PS but I've done so well to host in Richie's stead, and right at the very end, right at the death. But we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and remember everyone, play wherever makes you the happiest. See you next time. Goodbye.